We are fortunate to have with us Doreen and Marc Gounard. Marc was born in southern France. After completing a degree in marine engineering, he began his professional career as a charter skipper of sailing yachts in the Greek islands. After delivering a sailboat to the United States, he stuck around to apprentice with a jeweler in Washington, D.C., and began pursuing another passion, the handcrafting of gold and silver jewelry. Doreen met Marc while he was in D.C., and she was freelancing in the local film industry after completing her BA from American University. Traveling together throughout the Dominican Republic convinced the couple to marry, move to San Francisco, and start a family. Their two children, Maya and Tristan, were born in 1987 and 1996. The family moved to from San Francisco to Oakland in 1989, and soon began building Imani, a Simpson 10.2 meter catamaran. They brought Imani to Sausalito's Galilee Harbor in 1994. In 1999, the family cast off for the adventure of a lifetime, a 5-year west-about circumnavigation of our planet, which you'll be hearing about tonight. The Gounard family and Imani have been back in Galilee Harbor since 2004. For the past 9 years, Doreen has served as harbor manager for Galilee Harbor and is the Sausalito Parks and Recreation Commissioner. Marc continues to make handcrafted jewelry. He also delivers sailboats and coaches sailors who are pondering adventures of their own. Please join me in welcoming Marc and Doreen Gounard.
This is so weird to do this at home. We've done this talk a few other times at yacht clubs, and it's usually been a lot of strangers, and it's really interesting to be in our backyard and to be doing this talk. And I really want to thank all of you for coming out tonight, because we really appreciate that you have an interest in our story. I think so? Yeah, that's good. Okay, come on. I get started. Here we go. This is Imani. This is our home. We've lived on this boat for, it's been a long time now.
20 years.
20 years. Yeah, 20 years we've lived aboard this boat. When we moved on board, Tristan was 6 months old. He was born in '93, actually. And Maya was 6. And we completed the boat in the harbor, because when we first came to Sausalito, we just had the hull. The shell. And the insides were all done, but Marc still had a lot of work to do as far as the rigging and all the metal work and the nets and all of that we did at Galilee it took us 2.5 years to get the boat ready to actually go sailing.
Yeah, that's right. Well, so 93 was launched in 96. I just finished to get everything more or less ready, and we had our first sail in 96 in August, and in November we're going for the Baja. So I really wanted to go pretty bad. So we did 3 trips, the winter trips in 97, 98, 96, 97, 98, and spent 6 months in the Baja and 6 months here. And then in 99, December 99, we just left the Marquesas, and then went around the world for 4.5 years.
So this is the map of our route, and as you can see, that we went straight from San Francisco to the Marquesas, and sailed through French Polynesia, and through the islands in the South Pacific, and as far west as Fiji before we go north again. So we'll start with that part of the trip here, and then there'll be more little maps. I'll show you more where we are. That's me. I was not a sailor. I was not born a sailor like he was. He and his brothers sitting over here, they all sailed, from the time they were little. I did not do that. That was not my experience. I used to go to camp in the summer, and I would row boats and canoe and that kind of thing at the girls' camp, and that's about as close as I got to boating when I was a little girl growing up. And I just happened to fall in love with a sailor, and that's how I became a sailor.
This was the Marquesas.
Yeah, we're getting there. The reality was is taking 2 kids, by the time we left, they were 6 years old and 12 years old when we left for the Circumnav. And we had homeschooled them. Maya had not gone to school at all prior to this trip, and she was already 12. And Tristan, we were, at this point, just beginning to teach him how to read. There's Maya at 12. And she did not want to go. And all my neighbors in the Galilee Harbor, y'all know that well. She did not want to leave. She loved it here. She used to work in this library when she was between 7 and 11, 12 years old. She worked behind this desk every Thursday and helped, Gloria knows, with her grandson, helped check out the books and help the story time and all that. She was very much a part of this town, and she really didn't want to go. But we left.
As she used to say, your dream is my nightmare. I hate you, and she would not talk to me for months. And I was devastated because, you know, it was my little girl. But that was it. She was not my little girl anymore. So yeah, it took some time for her to come back and to realize that actually it was a good experience. You know, she grew up out of that. She really found herself, and it was actually good. But it was tough for her for a while.
Well, what you see here is
$500. No, I'm joking because I was making jewelry as we sailed, and in the Marquesas, I show my jewelry to a gallery. You know, there's not much tourism there, but there was this lady who had some rooms and a little museum, and I show her my jewelry. She said, "I love it all, but it's not for me." She said, "Can you make tikis?" I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna make little tikis." So I went to her beach and I grabbed some rocks, and then I carved them in little tikis, and I just sell them to her for $50, and it was 10 of them. It was $500. So I was like, here we go for the next month, get the money. So anyway, that's not what I do normally. I normally use silver. This is just carved little rocks with a little pendant, and that worked for her. So that was fun.
Yeah. As you can see, our path that we took brought us down through French Polynesia, through the Cook Islands, and then to Niue, and north up to American Samoa, and down to Tonga, and then from Tonga to Fiji, and then we headed north from there when most of the boats go south, and up to Tuvalu, and then up at the top there is Majuro in the Marshall Islands, which was the place to recharge the cruising kitty seriously, because then you can work there as Americans. We can work in those islands, and then we crossed over the Federated States of Micronesia, a couple of stops there, onto the Philippines. So that's our
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Why did you make the choice to go north there?
And south. Well, I'm married to a Frenchman.
Different reason. Okay.
He wanted to stay in the tropics. Says, why would you go to New Zealand, go get cold? You know, he wasn't interested. We weren't, and we had a cat. Okay, and importing a cat into both Australia and New Zealand is a very expensive endeavor, of which we, on our little shoestring, could not afford it. So all those kinds of things made us, and also we could go there and work where you can't necessarily work in New Zealand, that's for sure. So that's why
I wanted to experience different culture that the Anglo can. So I wanted to see people from the island instead of going down to see the British people again. So for me, I had no interest in going to New Zealand or Australia. I wanted to see other people. That's why I was going around the world. So I was no interest in going down there. But I would love to go someday. But then it was not, for me, it was not really interesting. So we went north, and there's a lot of island. And as the bad season arrive in November in Tonga and Fiji, people normally go south for the hurricane season, but you have the other option of going toward the equator because there's no hurricane there. So there's a belt, 3-4 degrees north and south of the equator that don't have hurricanes, but the weather is not very good because it rains and there's no wind and it's just not very good weather, but it's not bad weather. as regarding the storms. So that's what we did. And then in Majuro, we had no idea, but I was lucky to work a lot and make a lot of jewelry, and then, as Doreen said, replenish the cruising kitty. So that was actually a surprise, because we didn't know. So it worked out really good.
Yeah, this is,
How is the ocean between San Francisco and
about the crossing, sure. I'll tell you about, yeah,
It was
yeah.
the best crossing we had.
I know, it was amazing. We had, we left here December 11th, and right after a low had passed, just as the high was, just as it was about to set it, build in, that's when we left. And we had a 21-day passage that was just fantastic.
3,300 miles, so we're close to 8 knots, 7 knots average.
Yeah. It was
So
good. It was a really
it was
good
beautiful.
passage. It was a
Yeah.
beautiful passage. And in fact, at that time of year, leaving here, the ITCZ, which is that the belt, the big doldrum belt, where you can have a lot of no wind, and you know, they used to be called the horse latitudes. In that area is really actually quite small at that time of year. So we actually had something like 12 hours of no wind in that section. We turned the engine on, ran it for those 12 hours, and then got on the other side, and all of a sudden we were sailing again, and it was great. So we really had consistent wind on that passage. It was really, and we arrived on New Year's Day 2000 to Hibaoa, and it was a really magnificent landfall, I have to say. These are what some of these islands look like over there. It's very rock. There's just a lot of character. There's a lot of character in the islands and in the Marquesas. These are warrior people, and this is a warrior feeling kind of place. It really does. It has a lot of character, and yet at the same time, there's tremendous flowers, and there's a fragrance about this place that as we got closer and closer to the island, because the first thing you see from afar is all these rocks and whatnot. You say, wow, you know, that's, you know, Maya, when she saw it from very far, she was like, it's like Baja, you know, rocks. She kind of went back inside, and they're done that, you know. And then as we got closer to the island, just the fragrance of the Tahiti Tahari flowers and the Majipan and Majapani and all those incredibly fragrant flowers really hit you in the nose. I mean, it's amazing after not smelling anything but kind of salt air for 21 days. It really was pretty cool.
And there's no tourism in the Marquesas, so the place hasn't changed and doesn't change very much at all in the last 10 years. We went back in 2009, and there was just cell phone and bigger cars, but that's it. Everything else was the same, so it was nice to see the place doesn't change very much.
Yeah, we were lucky on this trip. We actually had crew. Her name is Anne Tout-le-Monde, which means all the world, which is pretty cool because she really was a very worldly lady. And we were bringing her back to French Polynesia, where she had met her husband and had her children. And so it was really cool. She'd been working with a French-American school, and she was just finishing her term, and her kids were going off to college, had gone off, and she was on her own for the first time. She said, I need to go back there. So she actually was our crew for the Polynesian part, the French Polynesia part, which was wonderful to have another mom-type person around with 2 kids around. I gotta say, I understand this, you know, this extra wife around thing. I mean it in the sense of being able to share the cooking and all that stuff and the kids, and you know, and they really loved her too. It was great. It was really wonderful to have her with us.
And this is one of the islands where the horses are owned by somebody, but they look like they're just wild because they just roam around anywhere, everywhere. And we just saw a lot of horses. Me and Tristan went to a botanical garden to collect some fruits, and they were all everywhere, all over the place. That's Akahao?
This is
they use them to carry the copra from one side to the island to the other.
Yeah, and once they get the copra to the other side of the island, and they just cut the horses free again. So they have to round up the horses every time to go get the copra and bring it to the other side. It's really, it's unique. Yeah, this is an example of the fruits that there is lots of in these islands. The Marquesas had lots of people in them many years ago. Where they said there were probably more like 40, 50,000 people. And now in all the Marquesan Islands, there's more like 7,000 people. And yet, the food that is planted there could sustain probably 40,000 people. There's a lot of food growing all over the place. It's amazing. And so you meet people, it's how you don't go and buy food. People, you make friends and they give it to you, and it's kind of how it all works, It really is part of, you become affiliated with a family, and you're their person, and they give you food. That's kind of really how it works, and we share what we have, and it was great. We really met a wonderful family that we went and saw again 10 years later when we went back, and it was so cool, because they said to us, they said, "Oh my God, you came back. Everybody says they're going to come back, but you actually did." It was great. It was really, really cool. And that's a breadfruit tree over there on the right. And another one is, but that's what I'm saying. The trees are huge. Everything is big, and there's lots of food.
And that's in Nuku'hiva, and a little bit inland from the harbor, the main harbor, and that's one of the old sacred place where they used to have festivities and sacred things happening there. I don't really know exactly what they were doing, but they've restored it, and they have every 3 years they have in the South Pacific, they have a big festival where people come from all over the islands and reunite and do their songs and do their ceremony, their dance, and so that's very big in the South Pacific. It happens there, it happens in Fiji, in different parts of the world. That's Nuku'hiva, so that's the capital of the Marquesas. You see behind the mountains are amazing with big waterfalls. And this time we had a little issue with an escape hatch, because if this boat will turn around, then we have ways to actually access the inside from...
If we were to capsize.
If we were to turn around, capsize. So there was a leak on the escape hatch, so at high tide we put the boat to the beach, and then when the water went down, went to work, and sealed everything, and then when the tides go back up, then we leave, go back at anchor.
Yeah, you're always doing boat repairs in beautiful places.
So do you always stop at these islands to stock up on food?
Oh, always. Oh yeah,
And
you're
then
constantly.
you
You have to get more food all the time. That's
How do you
something that.
preserve it?
Well, okay. The key is that when you're talking about fruits and vegetables, you're going to eat those. I mean, those are just not something that you're preserving. We would can meat because we had no refrigeration on the boat the entire time, and so we would get like a leg of lamb and put it in, and process it in a pressure cooker, and put it in those mason jars and put them on the shelf. Catch a big fish, which would sometimes happen. These giant fish you bring on board that, you get like 1, 2 meals and 3 meals, and then you're like, oh my God, I can't eat more fish. So we would can that as well. We got huge tuna, mahi-mahi, trevally, it's just, so I had at least 2 cases of canning jars on board. As far as butter and cheese, we would put those in, butter, put that in brine, just a watery brine, and also cheese. Initially we were putting those in oil jars, jars of olive oil, to cut up hard cheese and put those in there like that. There's lots and lots and lots of tricks.
So what you couldn't preserve, what did you have to buy?
Oh, then you're just, it's not that you want to buy fresh food everywhere you go. The preserved food is just for when you don't have the fresh, is often what you're doing. Because then you'd be buying, you know, we'd buy leg of lamb from New Zealand that was often in the
A
shops.
lot of
So
French food in
lots
the
of French
Marquesas,
food,
imported from
pate,
France. So you have all the
and,
delicacy, French expensive, but you can find everything.
yeah.
Coming on boats. There's a boat going from Tahiti, going through the TUOMOTU, which are the islands between Tahiti and the Marquesas, and delivering beer and material for building, you name it, clothes, food, you know, whatever they order the months before comes into the
What
boat.
about water?
Water, we were catching water, which we'll show you. Pretty
Rainwater.
yeah, rainwater.
We call it sky juice,
Yeah.
and we drink a lot of that.
So this is Roroya. This is one of the TUOMOTU atolls that we went to. We came to this one in particular because the kids had been reading the Kon-Tiki. And this is where the Kon-Tiki made landfall, was at this particular atoll. So that was our reason for going there in particular. But to get in, you've got to get in the pass. And often the water is flowing out of the pass, and you've got to have to wait till a certain tide. It's almost like coming in the Golden Gate, you know, where you don't want to be going against the tide. You've got to kind of come with it. And we had to wait a little bit outside to be able to make our way in this pass. It wasn't that easy. We did like 2 attempts that didn't quite work, and then finally the third one, we threw the dinghy in the water, put the engine next
That's
to it.
right, yeah, we have 2 engines there. We have on the boat, we have a 9.9 Yamaha outboard engine, so we don't have 2 diesel, like a lot of catamaran bigger have. So we had to put the dinghy in the water with the dinghy, the engine of the dinghy, which was then a 10 horsepower Honda 4-stroke, and put them full speed and go fight the tide to get in. But if we had waited 2 hours, then we would have been fine, but we didn't know that.
We were nervous. We were like, oh my God, we're waiting.
Because what's happened in the atoll, you have on the east side, you have waves coming and flooding into the atolls, filling up the atolls, and then this is the only place that the water can go out. So if there is a lot of storm, if there's a lot of high tide and there's a storm, the atoll filled up and then comes out through that pass. So, and then there's a tide, high tide and low tide. So if you're not sure exactly where the tides are, then you're not sure. And that was the first time in this kind of sea world, so we didn't know exactly what to do. We learned. Then it was easier after, but that was good. And that's what Tristan is doing right now. We have a big awning, big trapeze-shaped awning, and then there's a through hole that you see on the top. And the little line that pull the awning down, so when it rains, the water just pour down there like a big shower.
Like a big funnel. It's
Yeah.
basically, we turn the awning into a funnel where it catches it in the outer stretches and it pulls it down, and it just comes right down into the...
So we have a hose that's connected to the through hole that goes directly into the tank.
Right.
So once the awning is a little clean of salt, and
So,
we take showers under there, we fill up the cooler to wash clothes, we fill up jerry cans, and then it stopped raining.
yeah. But that's how we get water. That
So
was and in fact, through most of the Pacific, we did mostly catching. We caught all the way from, I guess, to the Philippines. That's when we were catching the entire time.
That's one of the gentlemen from the TUOMOTU growing pearls on his own. So there's a French government organization that helped the guys to do the pearl, but he was on his own, this one. And here he opened an oyster, and then he took out the first pearl, meaning this oyster has been in the water for a year and a half. A year and a half later, he dropped a little white bead in a special place in oyster and leave it there in the water for a year and a half. Come back, open, take the pearl out, and put another white little bit bigger in the same place. Put it back in the water for a second time. Do this a year and a half later, and 3 times they use the same oyster for getting 3 pearl. And every time they're different, and there's only 10% that are perfect. So, and then eventually they do a type of Moby pearl where they glue something on the shell and put it back in the water, and the oyster covers it. And then they eat the oyster at the end. And every time the oyster grows a little bit, because it's just,
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
it's bigger.
So here we are between the islands. When we run out of wind, everybody jumps in, goes swimming a little bit.
And it's very hot, so
It's
it's
really hot.
refreshing to go swimming.
Yeah, especially those times. So these are the Society Islands, which are, it always felt like it was a combination of both the Marquesas and the TUOMOTUs, because these islands have the big island in the middle, and then the fringing reef, the little motus, just like we would find in the TUOMOTUs, around that island. So it was really amazing to experience these islands, because they are very special. Gorgeous. When we got to Bora Bora, by this time we had connected with more kid boats, which was wonderful. It made Maya very happy. She kind of came out of her room, out of her shell, and all of a sudden she was having a good time. So life was really good when she connected with the two little girls on the end who were on a boat called Flyer. And then this other little gal who was from, they were from everywhere. Their father was Polish, the mother was French. The kids had Australian, New Zealand, and French and Polish nationalities. I mean, it was just, they were all over the place. Really neat family. And we ended up spending about 2 or 3 weeks just southeast end of Bora, across from one of the motus. And the girls got permission, because all those little motus are owned by people, but they got permission to camp on the beach for 3 days. By themselves. No little brothers, parents. They did it. They did everything themselves. They had the best time. That's Maya's home. And she was going to get, they would start the morning with their drinking, like everybody now is running around drinking that coconut water. Well, that's what she's going to get. We also spent a good amount of time in Taha and Raiatea, and that's where they grow the vanilla.
Tristan at 7. 6. Yeah, 6. Very serious. He was our driver. You know, he would come right to Doreen, to me, to shore, back and forth. He was just in charge, and he just loved that.
Yeah, we just got a new engine, and that's what it was. Once he could, this engine, anybody could start, including Tristan. So he was like, oh yeah, that was it. He was just born to drive.
And so we stopped in the Cook Island in Rarotonga, the capital of the Cook, and then the harbour master, as we were leaving, told me, oh, are you going to stopping at the Beveridge Reef on the way to Tonga? And I just look on the map. He showed me on the map on his wall, and he said, this is a reef that you have to stop. So I said, okay, cool. And it's basically a reef in the middle of the Pacific. So you have no palm tree, no beach, nothing. Just an open reef. The opening is in the west because the predominant wind comes from the east. So everything is pushed onto the reef, and the opening is in the west. And we came in one day, we went in the south, followed the reef, and came in the pass. And there was already 3-4 boats inside. So we could see the mast, and then we anchored. It was like 30 feet. It was perfect, and there was no obstruction inside, so it was very safe. And we anchored there, and we spent a week there, swimming and getting lobsters and swimming the pass. So again, the current come in and out of the reef, with the tide also act there. So you see the reef coming up and down. Yeah. And then we were few boats, because you can't make any mistake there. You're in the middle of the Pacific, so you can't have an engine quitting on you and being pushed by the wind, and etc. So, and with another boat or two, we just go together and then dive the pass. So as the current goes out, you just dive, and then the current makes you fly down there.
It's wonderful.
And it's just amazing. There's sharks down there.
There's everything.
It was just an amazing experience to dive the pass, basically, with a current.
It's called drift diving, and basically what you're doing is underneath the water there are canyons. There are pinnacles, there's just incredible formations down there that you're just being pushed with all the other fish, and you can see the whole, and the visibility was incredible. It's like 120 feet visibility from top to bottom. So you're seeing all the different layers of sea life, and they're all, it was just magic. We couldn't leave. We thought we'd be there a day, and we spent a week because it was just too much fun. And other boats would come in there and they'd say, but what do you do? There's just nothing here. You know, they just like, they stand on their boat and they just kind of look around. There's no beach to go comb. There's no, there's no shells to go gather. There's no. He said you gotta get in the water. This is where it all is. You gotta put your mask on. You gotta go get in it because that's where the action was there.
And there's no villages there.
Did you have tanks or were you just snorkeling?
Yeah, we snorkel. I have tank as a safety device that I need from time to time. So I have basic equipment just in case I need to go down for emergency, and I've been using it from time to time. But no, this is all snorkeling,
Yeah, this was just snorkeling. And in fact, one of the boats we were with, that guy, he could free dive, 90 feet. So we were just watching him, he was like watching TV, to be able to see Bill with the sharks and everybody down there. It's pretty cool. Yeah, here we are. Everybody is so excited. It was a really great time. After you come up, everybody's just all giddy. From there, we went on to Niue. This is an amazing island. If anybody goes in the Pacific, if you don't go to Niue, shame on you, because this place is sheer magic. It is the largest raised coral island in the world. It is a one-island nation of about 1,000. But they have like 1,100 people.
Well, they don't. Nobody know exactly because they have some aid for the number of people live there. So it's just kind of we don't know exactly how many people live there. Normally 1,200.
Yes.
But so there is no place to anchor. So they've set up some moorings. And actually, in latitude 38, lately the catamaran had an issue with their mooring and they end up on the reef in Niue.
They weren't on the yacht club mooring. They're on a different mooring.
I don't know which one.
I read that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but so,
I was wondering about that because those moorings were so good there.
Yeah,
When we were there,
and the
anyway.
visibility
Been a while.
was also amazing because there's no rivers there to get the water dirty. So the visibility again was 120 feet. We could see the line down in the water to the block of cement down there. It was
You could see the
amazing.
mooring all the way down, like it was like right next to you, and it was like 125 feet down there.
Is there springs on the island for water?
No springs. That's it. But there were some. But you'll see. There is some springs. There are some springs in this island. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But in the anchorage, there was a humpback whale who had just had a baby calf, and she would show off her baby every morning and evening. To it seemed like she was just like dancing amongst the boats saying, "Look at my baby, she's beautiful," because it's just incredible. And so, people had to just get in the water a little closer and see it. It was amazing to swim with the humpbacks.
So we did swim very close from the mother and the baby. It was magical. Yeah. So this for some geological reason, this island was raised from the bottom, so it's all coral that shouldn't have been underwater that suddenly came up, and that's just being eroded now with the rain, with the wind, and so you have a lot of tunnels, a lot of places where people go under the island, in the island, and then all kind of really unusual formations and fjords and crevasses, and they call them, what the name of those? Anyway, they had a name for the formation, but it was amazing. It was really stunning, a lot of vegetation.
And then you'd have this going on that island too. You'd have this real jungly part with, where it was just really, it was a really unusual island. And again, go get the drinking nut. And then these little oasis kind of places that you would just find after being in all these little rocky places. You end up in a place like this. It was pretty cool. Yeah, it's a really cool place to go visit. Very unusual.
Yeah, you can see the gray rocks. They're very, very sharp, very pointy, eroded by the
limestone.
elements. Yeah,
There.
very unusual. And the people have built steps and they've made it easy access to the tourists, so you can swim in safely. They built all kind of steps and access.
And after that, we went north up to Samoa and to get school books and all that shipped in from the States because they have American, in Samoa there was a U.S. Postal Service, so that was kind of a good thing to do, and Marc could ship out some jewelry, and so we kind of did a little business there and then headed down to Tonga And in September in Tonga, it's like all the boats that are in the Pacific all end up there. So it's a huge reunion. Yeah, Tristan was extremely excited because we were finally at a place where this kind of fruit, like pineapples and watermelon, was not terribly expensive, which it had been. And we were in, even in the Cooks and in Niue, it was, like, he saw a watermelon was 20 bucks. And I had to tell him, no, we're not getting a $20 watermelon. And we got to Tonga and we could buy everything. Because it was very reasonably priced and there was lots of food. And so he was so excited. Yeah, this is a little village on one of the islands in the Babau group that we went to. We visited a school there, and Marc, he made a clock for them because they didn't have a clock on the wall in the school, and so he had those clock bits. So he made a special clock for them. Yeah, and this was one of the guys in the village who welcomed us in and showed us around. Really lovely people, just very, very incredibly welcoming. From there, we headed to Fiji, and we decided to stay in the eastern part of Fiji, the kind of the really greeny part. It rains a lot on this end. But really cool. It was a great, great place to go. Lots of waterfalls. But life does go on. Still gotta get your hair cut. This is Mai. This is a pretty funny story. When we were, we had met two other boats, two other catamarans that had kids on board. They both had two kids on board. And Magic Happens and Shady Lady were the two boats. One from Hong Kong. Shady Lady was coming from Hong Kong that way. And then the other boat was an Australian boat that was up. So they had left before we had to find an anchorage, because we were in the main town, and now it was time to go adventure. And as we were approaching the anchorage that they were at, they got on the radio. And I said, "Oh yeah, we're almost there." They said, "You better put your lines out." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, there's a fee to get into this anchorage. You gotta get 1 mai before you can come in." So you put up our lines, and boom, that's what we caught. It was crazy, and every one of them that had come in, because they each had come one day at a time, and everybody caught a mai, and one bigger than the next to get in there. So it was pretty cool. Great fish.
And that's where we ended up together. We all wrapped up together in this hurricane hole, so it's a very safe, it's reasonably safe place to spend the hurricane season in Fiji, and some people do that. And so we had a big party here. We helped each other, climbing mast and fixing things and sharing things. The kids were all going from one boat to the other, and so that was really cool.
We actually had Halloween wrapped it up like this, and those kids from Hong Kong and Australia didn't know anything about Halloween, so our kids instructed them very well.
And the boat on the right, talking about engine, the boat on the right, I think it was 40, yeah, it's an Australian designer, but for the sailor in the boat, in a room, just to understand that this boat had two engines like I have, so 299 Yamaha 4-stroke, which is a big propeller, so which works. So instead of having one like I have, he was bigger, but he had two of them, so.
And the middle boat was a prow.
And the middle boat is a British design Pratt, which has a small diesel with a sonic drive in the middle, and that works fine too.
Whenever you come into one of those little coves in Fiji, you have to get permission to be there. And you have to bring the kava root. And they call it doing sebo sebo. So there we are, tying up to their perfect dock, everything all lined up. I mean, it was just gorgeous. This place was amazing. To go to have the ritual with the chief of the village. And that was really cool. It's pretty, you know, it felt like another time, but it really was about asking permission to be there. And at the end, they gave us permission we could fish in their waters, we could take water from their spigot, and you know, it was a whole thing of getting the permission for us to be there. And this is the village.
And we kept on going north toward the market Majuro in the Marshall Islands, but on the way it was Funafuti and Kiribati. So we made a stop in the capital in Funafuti, and we're really lucky to have some local activities. People come from other islands, and then for some celebration do a lot of eating.
It was their election.
Political
It was their
meetings and dancing, and they had some funny thing, like they had talc, and then they will throw talc to each other and perfume as they dance. It was really interesting, and then there was an incident with a cruise.
Yeah. There were a number of what we call cruisers, other sailors, who had come to visit the island, and in that big room that we're in, it has a lot of different entrances all the way around. It's kind of a circular space. And all around those places, there are doors. Not really doors, but just entrances. And everybody's shoes are at every, nobody wears shoes inside of there because it's a sacred space. And so when we got there, we did what everybody else. That's the one thing about this kind of travel, is that you find that you have to pay attention a lot. And you're just always watching everybody else to kind of figure out what's going on, because they're not speaking your language and you're not speaking theirs. So guess what? You got to pay attention. And you just kind of watch everybody, and we kind of took our shoes and left them outside, just like everybody else. And just as we got in the door, there were people all sitting on the floor everywhere. And the middle of the room was fairly open. But we just kind of ended up with this family, and they kind of sat near them, and everybody has food. They've got all this food laid out on the floor on their mats, and they're all eating and talking and whatnot going on. And this other couple, they came in after us, after we'd been there, I don't know, a few, 10, 20 minutes, and they saw somebody on the other side of the room after they'd taken off their shoes. They got to the indoor. They saw somebody over there they had met the night before, and they walked across the room. I'm gonna tell you, it was like E.F. Hutton. That place just went. I mean, all that jibber jabber, everything stopped.
They were not supposed to cross the room.
And there was a
really
huge intake of breath in that room. I mean, they just went.
Are we gonna kill them?
It was like this moment of what's gonna happen to these people,
It was really bad.
And it was really bad. It was really this moment of, and there they are in the middle, and I was thinking, if that was me, I'd be backstroking like nobody's business. But no, they just went right across and went to those people. I was like, oh my God. And then it turned into this huge discussion amongst the elders and the people for like 20 minutes of what was going to happen to those people. That what was going on. I mean, it was like, we're just sitting there, we're kind of eating. And in the end, the village elder, he explained that he told us, because he did speak English, he said, I had to explain to everybody that these people just don't know what to do, and it was a mistake, that was not something intentional and all that. But that was one of those moments of, you really have to pay attention, because sometimes things that we do and think nothing of is really an affront to their culture and the way they do things.
So the Marshall Islands are a bunch of atolls again. So there's motus on the outside, a big lagoon on the inside. Once you find the pass and you go in it safely, you're inside the atoll. It's very protected from the swell. And we spent 4 months there, where I was working a lot there, making all kind of custom jewelry. And here we see Maya doing chemistry, and then Tristan studying, as they will do every day, just by themselves. Yes?
Did you have a ham radio or something for communications and weather?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a short band radio.
Yeah.
And a VHF. as well?
Yeah, we do. We
Yeah.
do have that. And we use it connected to the computer to do weather charts all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, the computer was really important, actually. It really did keep us in, as far as the weather was concerned, to get those weather faxes, to come out.
And Wi-Fi, even in the Marquesas, now you have a hotspot. So you go in the main anchorage in the Marquesas, you put your antenna outside, you go to a store and buy a card for so many minutes or whatever, and then you are Wi-Fi and you're on the web. So it's really amazing.
So from there, when we left Marshalls, we headed to Koshrai in Micronesia, as well as Yap, and thereafter we crossed into the Philippines. We crossed the Philippine Trench and ended up in the Philippine Islands, and that's our path through the Philippine Islands. And we'll kind of explain why. It's a little convoluted. Normally we kind of go straight through the sea and come down to Palawan, but no, we couldn't do it that way because not long after we got there, the Abu Sayyaf, which was a terrorist organization, actually grabbed 25 resort workers and tourists and took them hostage. And so that made for, all of a sudden our trip, we had to deal with a political situation at the same time and try to understand where was a safe place to be and really try to keep ourselves out of any harm's way, that's for sure. But yeah, but here we all are, because we were still having fun, I have to say. The Philippine people were really wonderful, and we had some friends who came and visited us and spent 10 days with us, our friend Gary and his wife. And Gary, he was born in Chicago to two Philippine parents, and he had never been to the Philippines before. And so they came and met us after he had visited his extended family just north of Manila. And then they came and joined us on Imani, and we really, really had a great time together. That was really fun. He and his wife and son. And that is important in this travel, when you're traveling for years, that those visits that you get from home are even more important than you can imagine, to be able to show your friends what you're experiencing, to share it. Because every time you're doing these things, you're going, oh my God, if so-and-so, they should see this. Oh, if they only, if they were here, it'd be like that. So it's great to be able to share the experience. We always loved having family and friends come and join us. I'm going to deviate a little bit from the slideshow I've got a little bit of a video to show you, only because it's pertinent, and I think it will give you a sense of what it was like on board the boat. While we were in the Philippines, making our way out of the country, we ended up in kind of a situation that I'm going to let it speak for itself. Maya.
Where are we going? This is Maya. Just finished a meal here, lunch on the 4th of July here in the Philippines.
4th of July.
That's Doreen, 4th of July, and Tristan. Oh, Tristan, where is he? Tristan is hiding. This is, Tristan is outside. Oh my God. What's happening outside? Let's see. Oh.
It's a typhoon.
It's a typhoon. Oh, it's a typhoon. It's the 4th of July typhoon. Here we go, Tristan. And the dinghy and the coast. We're pretty close. Tristan, show us. The beautiful village there. And the wind is coming 30-35 knots right in here. That's fun, but we have no choice. Please to be done.
Yes, Imani is finally moving again today after a very quiet day. Hello, Mr. Tristan.
Hello.
What's new with you today?
I had a tooth.
Touch the tooth. Show us which tooth. Ah, yeah, that tooth. Looks like any minute now it's coming out, huh?
Maybe.
All right. What do you want from the tooth fairy?
Cherries.
That's a tough find out here. This is where we are right now. Out here
In the wilderness.
in the wilderness next to Palawan. There's Palawan out there in the distance.
And then you can't see it anymore.
You can't see it anymore. It's back there.
Did you double anchor there?
Yeah, I'm going to let him tell you about the anchoring situation, sure.
Yeah, we actually ended up on the edge of a typhoon. We stopped in that place thinking it was just a squall, like it happened a lot, and it turned into 3 days of having between 35 to 55 knots of wind constantly, and that's the 4th of July, and we had no idea. We could not move because we were stuck there, and as you see behind the boat, the reef is there, maybe 40, 50 feet behind. So if anything happens, we washed on the reef, so that was not a good place to be. But, so we had some help from the locals that kind of were watching us as they were trying to find, they know we're looking for a place to anchor, and it's pretty deep. But there's an area with sand, and the guy from the beach was saying, okay, here. So I'm looking around and see some white patch and put the anchor on sand, which is what you want. And then we had an anchor holding. And then I put my diving gear the day after, put my diving gear, and there was some buoys, some moorings not too far, so I went to check out what it was, and there was some pearl.
They had told us that we could use those moorings as well if we wanted to go get on the mooring. And Mark thought, no, because then it was really deep there, and you'd just be on that one point, and he didn't know if he wanted to trust that. So instead, we decided to put a line to that mooring.
Right, yeah, so I dove and see there was a big line around a coral reef and then a float, and it was really new and in good shape. So we put a line on the float, and then I took another anchor and there's a dinghy and fighted the wind with Maya and put another anchor at 45 degrees. So we were holding on 3 points, so we were safe. You know, it was.
But it was still nerve-wracking. I mean,
but yeah, you don't want that. You don't want to have the land behind you, that's for sure. But we could not leave, and we were stuck there. So we did the best we could, and it worked out. That was the only time that we were in a position like that. Yeah, in a dangerous place like that.
So
then we went down Palawan.
We went
down to the west of Palawan. There's a big island in the west of the Philippines called Palawan, and the story, we were talking about it earlier, the story is that when we were at the top of the Palawan, we didn't know if we were going to be maybe encountering not the pirates, but the extremist Muslim in the Sulu Sea, or if we were going to be on the other side and have that kind of weather, which was possible, early hurricane. So we did choose the weather instead of the pirates. Terrorists.
It was one of those moments, you're like, what's it gonna do? Let's see. You know, we figured, we kind of half knew, and in fact, one of the locals had told us that he thought that we have a better chance dealing, there were plenty of hidey holes along Palawan that we could go and hide in, and that's why we made that decision to go there, rather than be on the other side of Palawan and be in the Sulu Sea and might encounter the Abu Sayyaf. So. And at that point, they had started chopping people's heads off, and it was getting really crazy. So no, we weren't going that way. So we stayed. We were battling Mother Nature instead. And but what was amazing was to see Borneo, and there is Mount Kinabalu, which is the highest mountain in Southeast Asia, the only alpine mountain there, and it was just gorgeous. Beautiful sight to see. We ended up at, when we got to Kota Kinabalu, which is the name of the main town in that part of Sabah, is the name of the state of the Malaysia.
Northwest Borneo, that's part of Borneo. Most of Borneo is Indonesia, Northwest part of it is Malaysia, part of it, and then in the middle of Malaysia there's Brunei.
Yeah.
So that's where we were. We followed the west coast of Borneo.
Yeah, and this is us at the,
And there was a resort.
yeah, the Gaia
Eco resort.
Eco Resort. Yeah, we grabbed a mooring there. At the time, it was like $5 a day, and it was a great spot. It was a wonderful, really calm. There was a little coral garden right off the boat that you could just get off and swim and snorkel and take a look at every day.
And there was a ferry going to Kota Kinabalu, which is a pretty big city with all kind of stores and malls, and so we used to go there and have the engine fixed and get food and get parts and all kind of things. So that was a good spot. And we discovered Malaysia. We didn't know nothing about Malaysia. We just kind of moving, and we were really, really happily surprised with what we find in Malaysia, the people, the trust, and it was very interesting.
Yeah.
So here, me and Tristan, we took a trip inland on the train alongside the river and went visit some hotels and come back. This is the trip inside land. That was cool.
Me and Maya, we stayed with the cat. And we made our way down Borneo to the Singapore Strait, which has to have more cargo ships than you can ever imagine seeing in one place.
And a tanker, because they have a lot of a refinery there. So there's a lot of big tankers. So you're kind of slaloming around the cargo ships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We made our way through the Malacca Strait and ended up heading up to Langkawi, which is at the
Close to the border with
close to the
Thailand.
border of Thailand.
And
Exactly.
we spent a year between Malaysia and Thailand playing with the visa situation where Malaysia will give us 3 months and then we have an overnight to sail to Thailand, and Thailand will give us 1 month. So sometimes it will take us 2 weeks to do the one night because we stop everywhere and they don't know where you live, they don't know when you come from, so we could play that for a year and everybody does it and it's normal. So that was the way to do it, and that's Langkawi.
Yeah, that's Langkawi, and this is Kua. This is in Kua, the main town, and they had just had one of their countrymen had just done a circumnav solo, and so they had started a new sailing program to make more sailors of the Malaysians, and so they had a free Optimist program to any kid who wanted to sail. And Tristan, there he is, decided to jump right in. And he loved the idea of running his own boat. Just doing what other people say, but yeah, totally dug it. And yeah, and the ladies, they're so cool. They're really great. And they're the men dance. Yeah, big time. And then we ended up, then we were heading up to Thailand for New Year's. We spent Christmas in Malaysia and in Thailand. Everybody would meet in, go to Patong Beach.
In Phuket, on the west side of the island, there is a place called Patong, very, very touristic. And the 31st of December and the 31st of December, boats are coming from everywhere. You can see masts, and during the day, all the time, people are coming and anchoring and coming and anchoring, and you have like 600-700 boats meeting there. It's kind of one of the things that cruisers from the area do every year. So they meet people they haven't seen in years, and it's a big party on the beach, and people go from boat to boat, and it's just a big, huge party.
It's like 3 days of partying, basically.
So we were there for New Year.
Yeah, our friend Ingrid is here, and we met them there, their family on New Year's Eve at this place. So it's really cool that you're here. Ingrid. So happy. But yeah, it was great, and it's like the Babau group in the same way. Certain time of year, all the boats that happen to be in that part of the world all end up in the same place.
Because of the season.
Because of the season.
You cross oceans at a certain time of the year. So you have to meet, people are all congregating in the same place and then all living more or less in the same place to cross oceans.
Yeah, and so Maya finally met her tribe in this group. Aya. All the teenage boys and Maya's cat all hanging out, and it was great. Actually, it was a really, really good group of kids, and they all had some really great times together, and this was a turning point for Maya. That idea that his dream was her nightmare no longer was the reality. Now her life began.
Is she still in contact with those guys?
What's that? What's the question?
I said, is she still in contact with her friends from these trips?
Yeah, some of them. Yeah, some of them. Yeah, she definitely kind of knows where they kind of keep track of each other. I think more than anything. Yeah, absolutely. But this was really a turning point for her. In Phuket, she started. During that, we decided to spend that year between Malaysia and Thailand, and she joined the Phuket Riding Club and started riding horses. 5 days a week, 7 o'clock in the morning, waking her father up. Get that dinghy down. Come on, I got to get to I got to get the tuk-tuk to get to go ride my horse before it gets too hot. So. But it was great. It was a wonderful situation and opportunity that we could not have afforded here. But there it was very reasonably priced, and so she really became quite the horsewoman during that time, and she had a great time.
And this is Thailand again. So there's a shipyard in Phuket called Ratanachai, and it's a huge shipyard. A lot of boats do their bottom there. So here we took the boat out and actually paid somebody to work on the boat, which was a first.
First time in our lives, first and last.
They sprayed the boat. We had to repainted the white part, the hull, and then did of course an anti-fouling and repaired the thing under the water, and that's it. So we spent some time meeting new boats there and having a job that definitely need to be done every 3 years or what.
And so we're in there with these great big fishing boats and all kinds of things. I mean, it's like every kind of boat you can imagine was in this shipyard.
Is the boat fiberglass or metal?
Is it fiberglass?
Fiberglass or steel?
Yeah, the boat Imani is a combination of cedar, strip plank cedar, fiberglass with epoxy, and then plywood. Yeah, composite plywood.
Yeah, she's designed by Roger Simpson, an Australian designer. She's an Aussie designer. So when we left Thailand in 2003 in January, and crossed the Indian Ocean. We would love to have stopped in Sri Lanka and India on the way, but the visas for 4 of us was really prohibitive, and so we couldn't afford to stop. So we had to just keep going, and we made our way to the Maldives and had a quick refueling there, and then made our way to Oman, which was our first landing on the Arabian Peninsula. In Salalah at that point, when we arrived, it was probably, I guess we got there probably February. We spent a month there. We did our taxes and all kind of stuff you got to do. And no, it's true. You do taxes all around the world. It's amazing. But we did it. And we get it, but it takes time. You got to organize with the accountant and the email, and at that point, faxing, and it was just a little crazy, but we actually did it. And so we spent about a month in Salalah, and it was at the point, it was 2003, the beginning of the Iraq War was about to start. We were in a port where all the coalition navies were coalescing. It was very hot. At that point, and there we were, these little yachts making our way to the Red Sea to go up to the Red Sea for the right season. It's a timing story, and we were poised to start to go north. Where just before we left, we found out that a boat, another cruising boat that we knew, had actually been boarded and robbed. Well, they had left just a few days before us, about to leave, and so we decided, and we heard them on. What happens is there's a morning net of all the boats talking on the HF radio, on the high frequency radio, at 8 o'clock every morning, and everybody would give their position and weather and what's going on and what the news was. It was kind of like our 6 o'clock news, happened every day, and those guys. When we left, right after we left, a few days later, we were making our way with other boats. We decided to go in a convoy because we felt that it would be better to be with a group at least. So we left with 4 other yachts. And we were crossing, we were heading towards almost at the not too far from the Gulf of Aden when we saw something on the horizon that looked a little suspicious. And at that moment, it was 8 o'clock in the morning, the net was on, and the guys who gotten hit the week before were giving their report about what happened. And they were explaining their experience. And we see these 3 boats on the horizon, and the other boats that we're convoying with, they're like, that looks really, they all kind of look the same. That's unusual. That's kind of weird.
They're pointing at us, they're going straight at us too. So
yeah, and they're coming toward, so it's like, so we asked them, what did those boats look like that got you last week? And they gave a description, and the other guy, one of the other boats, he says, well, they're here, we gotta go. And it's true. We, at that point, our engine really started to move, we started to run, basically. And there were 3 open boats.
Yeah, basically they are a safe boat from cargo ship. So they have a small diesel 1-cylinder, that's just an emergency boat for a cargo ship. And they load them up with people from Somalia, and they bring them to Oman, to Yemen.
To Yemen.
Which is unfortunately happening a lot now in Europe, in the Mediterranean. So they do take people from Africa to the Arabian Peninsula, and then we happen to cross path. And luckily we were ahead of the game. We saw them, we accelerated, we put our engine full speed, so they could not catch up. But one boat follow us for half an hour, shooting in the air and trying to catch the last boat, which was not us. So we were in front. It was good. They were going to catch the last boat, and they didn't catch anybody. And
but it was scary. It was scary, I have to say.
Yeah.
It was that was even with the typhoon, that's another kind of scary, but this was really a visceral fear that I have to say, I was sweating bullets. And I was thinking at the time, because I said, if they board us, what can we afford to lose? So we were doing stuff like taking the cash and splitting it up in different places in the boat and hiding places like that. Took my wedding rings, put them in with the Legos. I'm like, I'm taking the old camera and I'm putting it on, and I'm hiding the good camera somewhere else. The old binoculars, put those over there by the door and hide the good ones. Because there's things that when you're on this boat and doing this life that are essential, that you have to have these tools. These tools are what make it happen. So it was like, I was already trying to think of those things that we really couldn't afford to lose, and putting them in places that would not be easy to find. And yet giving and being prepared to give them something, so that they wouldn't feel that you were holding out, but here, okay, you want my such and such, here it is.
Were you
Yes.
armed?
No, we were not armed. We were traveling with small children, and we don't know guns. And I gotta tell you this much, if you're gonna carry a gun, you gotta be prepared to shoot first, because it's not, you can't brandish, you can't, that doesn't work. We've seen bad experiences around that. No, it was not in the cards for us. We were not gonna travel with guns.
Yeah, that's what happened to Blake in the Amazon when he came out with his gun, and then some guys were on the boat already with gun, tried to steal his big boat, research sailing boat, and he came out with his gun thinking he was going to scare them. They saw him, he just shot him. That was it. So you shoot first, you don't ask questions then, and you have to be prepared to just kill somebody.
Anyway, so we ended up, after that run, because we used a lot of our fuel, because we don't usually go that fast, but under power, we had to go into Yemen. So we went into the Gulf of Aden, and this was who came and met us at the entrance of the harbor with these guys with these guns, and that was more fear, when we first saw them, we're like, oh my God, here we go. But actually they were our escorts, and they brought us, they said, we heard about what had happened to you guys, because we called the coalition, we called the US Navy, they knew what had happened. I mean, we were all over the radio, all the boats heard about it and knew what was happening with us, so they wanted to debrief us with the port captain. And then they gave us a driver to show us Aden. And it was amazing. We had so much fun. That was really, really such a cool experience to actually see. A country that doesn't see a lot of tourism. That's Marc in the middle with our driver, Salim, and this other guy who insisted on getting in the picture. Because I tell you, these guys in Yemen, they like getting their picture taken. They are not shy. They are not shy. Everybody was grinning and take my picture, me. It was unlike a lot of places.
Did you have to wear a burqa?
No, I didn't have to wear a burqa. No, it wasn't that. Yeah. I wore, I just wore, you wanted to cover your arms. And so you wore very light trousers and just down to you, just cover your arms, basically. Yeah, they were fine with that. Yeah. So we went into the Red Sea and we ended up in Eritrea, and that was my first step on African soil. And wow, that was so cool. We loved Eritrea. And we made our way from the anchorage. At this point, we're in the midsection, heading up the mountain to Asmara, which is the capital city. And there it is. It's a really cool, cosmopolitan, interesting place where they make a lot of those Italian shoes. This is it.
Pizza, Bologna, corner store with all the Italian cheese. It was really
pastries,
espresso, pastry. It was really like black Italy.
It was
really wild.
It was wonderful.
Very
and
interesting.
There's
and
a real
very
cafe, real cafe culture. You know, everybody's sitting in the cafe in the morning, in the evening, in the night. I mean, it's just constant. It was great. We had a really wonderful time visiting Asmara, and then heading back to Massawa. You get like all the seasons. You know, down here is summer for sure, and this was outside of a market. That was the camel parking lot. And from there we headed up to Sudan, through Sudan. We couldn't get off the boat. That's another place where we couldn't afford the visas. So, but they do allow you, because of weather, you have to kind of hide, because sometimes when the northers blow, you can't get through. So you just got to go wait for weather. So these are some of the beautiful places you get to wait.
And like fjords, they call them Marsa, and they go inland like a river, and you motor inside, and there's coral reef everywhere. It's the best diving that we ever seen everywhere. Soft coral and very clear water, and a lot of fishes. So there's not a culture of fishing down there for some reason. So it's it's full of fish. It's gorgeous, really amazing. Very, very poor. And this gentleman came and asked us if we had any water to share.
Yeah, that was the first time we'd ever had a fisherman anybody ask us for water, sugar, oil. I mean, he was really looking for those substances.
So we gave him some food and some old sail that we had, so could help a little bit. But yeah, it was very, very poor. That's a tree valley that when we sail, we always have lines in the back, trolling, and so we catch those big, beautiful, delicious fish from time to time.
Yeah.
And as we go up north in the Red Sea, we reach Egypt, and we left the boat in.
Yeah, in the Suez Canal, we crossed the canal halfway, and we left the boat there. And a friend of mine who I'd gone to college with, she was working with USAID. She and her husband, and so they were in Cairo, so they came and picked us up and brought us to Cairo for a week. And that was wonderful, as well as going to Luxor. I mean, to see the ruins. I mean, it's so sad what's happening in Egypt right now, because this is all so magical. And yeah, there we are in Luxor, the whole family.
So we saw 2 of those dead floating core in the Mediterranean. So basically, I know we had no idea why a dead core, but we learned after that when we stopped in France that there is special cargo ship who come to France, and then they load up cows to bring to Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, and etc. And then if they die, then they can't sell them, so they just throw them overboard. And 2 of them we actually saw. 2 different cows.
The oddest thing.
So that
Sail by
that's-
cows.
That's actually back to Egypt
Yeah.
in the Nile. We took a trip on the local boat with some of the
Yeah.
cruiser for one day. We went experiencing the boat, and then after, so we passed the Suez Canal, and then crossed north to Turkey. That's a really magic place, the southwest coast of Turkey, and that's a little fjord. So obviously here we are, 5 boats, partying, swimming, windsurfing, eating, fishing, etc., and having a great time in the summer in the Med. So we spent the summer on the Med, in the Med, going from Turkey to Greece, and then pretty fast to south of France, where I was born.
Here we are. This is in Kalki. This is in.
So that's next to
Greece.
Rhodes.
Yeah.
It's a little fishing harbour next to Rhodes on an island. A really gorgeous place. That's
That's Simi.
Simi next to Rhodes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's Tira or Santorini.
Santorini.
Of course, that's an amazing volcano that you sail in.
Oops.
Call them, and they try to push the other guy in the water. So that,
And then yeah.
so there's music, and there's obviously a lot of people, and it's they all come from different villages from the south with their boat, and that's what they do. And this is cousins, brothers and sisters, nieces, nephew who
Yeah. The Gounard clan.
came to visit us. We only spent 10 days in France, so we had to go and pick up friends in the Balears, so we're on a schedule.
Mark, did you have charts for all these places, or you were?
Yeah, I always have paper charts, yeah. Yeah, we
That's
had
what they
a
were, paper charts.
CMAP, a system on the computer in case of emergency, so we could connect the computer. I mean, I have charts from the computer, but I don't have the computer on all the time because it just uses a lot of power, and we are limited from solar panels and wind generator. We don't get any other source of electricity but from the solar panel and the wind generator. So I'm always limiting the consumption of electricity. That's a priority. So.
But did you buy them ahead of time, or just as you went?
Yeah, yes and no. No, you meet people and you photocopy them,
Yeah.
or you trade them,
Yeah.
or so.
It's
yeah,
constant as you're going
different-
along.
Different ways, yeah.
So you're collecting
But-
charts.
Yeah, we always have paper chart, yeah.
So we made our way through. We went to Barcelona and through the Balears to Mallorca, Ibiza, and then ended up down in Gibraltar. And there we had a whiteout. That was one of the most ferocious storms that we had ever. It's like, oh my God! It was right around Halloween. And we realized it was really time to get down to the Canaries because it was, fall was really here.
Just behind those boats, there's a big rock of Gibraltar that we can't see. It's right behind there.
It is.
In the shadow. You can't see it, but
It's there.
and that's an anchorage. That's actually on the Spanish side,
Yeah.
and it's right
La
next to
Línea.
Gibraltar. And the boat anchor there.
Now we're on our way to the Canaries. Oh yeah, way better. And from there, we cross the Atlantic. In the middle of the trip, we ran out of wind. It got really quiet.
Light wind. We
Yeah.
had 10 days of very light wind right in the middle of the Atlantic.
So whenever we run out of wind, we make pizza. It's just the thing to do anyway. When it all, gets quiet, it's time to.
And I went to work. I made jewelry for 10 days because we had no more inventory.
And we're going so slow. You made the kids get off the boat and with the scrubbers and scrub the bottom of the boat while we were sailing because we're going that slow.
So we went to after the crossing is happening, and we arrived in Saint-Barth, where I sold a lot of jewelry there in one store, which was needed. And then this lady told me where to go. So we went to other islands and went to different stores, and I sold more work and made more money. And then eventually Maya had met a boyfriend in Thailand, and he was in the Bahamas. And so we had to go to the Bahamas.
Yeah.
So,
Well, nobody else had any specific place they needed to go to but Maya. She was like, well, we have to go to the Bahamas. Can we go there? I said, okay, sure. What's your question?
So
Sure.
is this where your dream turns into a nightmare?
Is this when your dream turns into a nightmare, Mark?
I turned the other way and put some incense candle and pray. everything went well.
He was a boy from a good family.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're
So
very lucky.
we
so-
actually, so we went to the Bahamas to go hang out. We were there for, I don't know, a couple months almost. And they have a big regatta that happens in Georgetown at Great Azuma. And we, partook in all that stuff that was going on, and the kids really had a great time. But then it was time to go, and it was March, and we had to make a move because we had to get down to Panama and get back before the Pacific hurricane season here. So we needed to make a move. So we actually left Maya with the other family, and because she had to be back here in April to take her high school proficiency exam to test out of high school, so she could go to the College of Marin in September, and that was her plan. So we are all about the plan in our family, so we accommodated that, and so she got another 3 weeks on the Dawn Treader, which was the name of our friend boat, and me, Mark, and Tristan, we left and took the boat to Jamaica, and then on to Panama.
Panama Canal. And here's a little anecdote. We don't have a sewing machine. I got one now. I'm learning to sew. It's my new thing. But then we didn't have a sewing machine, so I had a piece of plywood, and every time we go somewhere, I put my basic colors and paint the flag, put it in the mast, and nobody tell me anything. So that was Panama flag there, and painted
That's our courtesy.
2 days before we get to Panama.
And they're always perfect, they never fray.
Yeah, it's I told the same piece of wood ended up being many flags, just repainted on top of it, and you just need very basic colors. And I just saw another guy on a catamaran doing that too. I was not the only crazy one.
It totally made sense from afar. It's fine, and that was the thing, because every country you go to, you do have to fly the flag of the country that you're in. That's required. Oops, oh my, sorry. Yeah. Here we are. Imani's in the canal. Wow, that was pretty crazy. In there with those big boats, and yeah, it's an amazing piece of engineering, no question.
Looks very narrow.
I know, it just feels it when you're in there. Mm-hmm. Here we are at the last lock, about to head into the Pacific Ocean, and it's pretty special. We're like, oh my God, we can't believe we did it, and we did it in one day. We crossed the Panama Canal in a day. Because they say that you got to do 8 knots through the lake at the top. First what happens is the locks bring you up the mountain basically, and you get up top there, and then you're in this flooded, what used to be something else, but you see the tops of the trees still sticking out, and there's a channel that you have to follow. But the guy told us, the pilot that's on the boat, because you have a pilot who's telling you exactly what to do, and he told us that we couldn't fly the mainsail, but we could fly a headsail. So we had just got this great big spinnaker from Ingrid's boat, from the Dawn Treaders when we left them in the Bahamas, and we said, we've got a headsail, it's a spinnaker. And that's what we flew. And that's how we made our 8-9 knots going across that lake. And it was great. I mean, the pilot, he was so excited. He said, now this is fun. Because usually he's in cargo ships and, just putting. He said, no, this is because we had to really muscle that sail around and really use it, because we had to follow the actual dog legs of the channel.
Yeah, which is jibing downwind, so doing zigzag in the channel. But then we had more weight. These catamaran don't like weight, so suddenly we had 4 big people on top of all our stuff.
Because you have to have line handlers.
So you have to have lines and
all that stuff. Yeah, it's a lot.
Extra fenders and then people. So
but we did it, and we did it in a day. So we were very proud of that. And then it took us as a slow.
And then the plan was to make Panama, San Francisco non-stop in one leg, but the wind was not there, so we did Panama, Acapulco, and then refueled, got some more water, more food, and then did the coast again all the way to Puerto Vallarta and then Cabo San Lucas. And then as we've done many times, and there's a chart there for people who are interested, I brought a photocopy. We did Porto Vallarta, no, sorry, Cabo San Luca to here with the old clipper route. When the boat didn't have any engine, they had to use the wind. And so they had to go out at sea, follow the coast, 400 miles, turn right, and head for San Francisco. So that we've done that 4 or 5 times. And next time we go to Hawaii and come back from Hawaii because it's really tiring.
I'm too old for that.
It's not fun. Yeah,
I was just a young spry thing then, not anymore. But anyway, we got back in June 18th, 04. It was a 4.5-year circumnav, and it was really an amazing thing to do, I have to say. And we're still here.
It was my dream when I was 9 years old, so I guess I was lucky I could do it.
You got time for a couple of questions?
Want me to go again?
Yeah, I go again, yeah, I'm getting ready.
You're getting ready?
Yeah, I see.
I got a question up there, go ahead.
Where you were there on the beach looking out at Phuket, was that where the tidal wave came in? Was that same?
Yeah, the photo you see of
That was- yeah.
Pipidon,
That was
that's when
Pipi.
the wave came in the middle there. There was an arm of land and then washed up everything. Yeah, that was
That's true.
definitely.
All of that area
Yeah.
got hit real hard.
Yeah.
That's true. That was a year after we got back, actually, so we didn't have that. And all our friends that were still there, they all had time to, they were on their boats, most of them, because it was 9 in the morning, and they just lifted anchor and went to sea. So everybody was fine, actually, that were there.
Yeah, people in Marina, actually, in
Had a hard
Langkawi, there's an island with a marina in the middle. They just dig the island and made a marina, and then most of the boats sank because the wave came in, and some people had time to cut their line and just get out because
They were stuck.
they were smart enough and ready to just go, but most of the boats just sank right inside the marina. So yeah, it's,
In the Marquesas, I was there in '82. When you guys were there, when I was there, at nighttime, the whole village would disappear, and I'd walk around, I'd find them all sitting in front of the one TV, watching soap operas, American soap operas dubbed into English, or dubbed into French. Was it like that when you were there?
well, they have French programs. Made in France or made in Papeete, so from local news, news from Tahiti, and local program from Tahiti mixed with program from France. So.
But they all had televisions at that point, pretty much, and they were getting all the French televisions coming straight to them. It was like they were in Paris. It was really, it was interesting in that sense. Yeah, you see that.
And the internet is definitely there, so people have access to it.
Because we arrived, it was 2000 at that point. Oh, what are our kids doing now? I'll show you those kids. Maya graduated from Hampshire College in Amherst, Massachusetts in 2009. And now she is working in Amherst and living in Amherst for an animation internet gaming studio. She's a producer. And Tristan, there we are, we're in DC this summer because we brought him, he transferred from, and both of these kids transferred from College of Marin, I want to say, which was really absolutely a wonderful institution. Tristan just transferred to George Washington University. He's a computer science major as a sophomore. So he is in his first semester of his sophomore year right now. And they're coming home in December. They just got their itineraries for the for the Christmas trip back home. So yeah, they're good. They're good. I think that Maya has told me now that when she has kids, she's going to homeschool her kids too, which I never expected her to say. Really, but yeah, she said no, it was good. So yeah, they're good. They're good kids.
You're pretty special,
All y'all are special, and that's why we're here, and we're Sausalito people.